Well, delighted to be joined. Robbie Fowler, God, Liverpool legend, Brisbane Roar manager as well. He's back in Merseyside. And Rob, let me start by saying, first and foremost, hello. And I guess, is the family okay, safe during what has been an unprecedented 12 weeks or so?
Yeah, look, I think everyone is maybe struggling a little bit mentally because we're all stuck in the house, pal. But look, it is what it is. We have to use it to our advantage. But look, I think the saving grace is there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel there, pal. So I think we're aiming for that.
Absolutely, light at the end of the tunnel. What does it mean for you, Rob? Because I did say in my little introduction there, you are, what do people forget this? You're Brisbane Roar manager.
We were probably one of the last leagues to stop. And it was difficult getting out of Australia. But, you know, when obviously you're over there and your family's over here, it was probably a little bit more nerve-wracking, if I'm being totally honest. And as soon as I found out, you know, that it was worse in the UK, and obviously when certainly the Prime Minister was recommending people from overseas to get back to your own country, then you know, it just seemed a little bit surreal. So I just knew I had to get home. You know, thankfully from my point of view, the season had been postponed for a little bit.
How have you?
No return in sight just as yet, but yeah, I think for me it was just a case of, look, I'm glad to get home, and really struggled at first because I think when I got back to the UK, it was not like what I'd seen before. You know, I hadn't seen this level of scariness, if you like, you know, over in Australia. But yeah, it sort of you know, it hit me, to be honest.
Are you missing it? Are you missing the day-to-day? Obviously, you've said family comes first, and you're absolutely right, Rob. A lot of people watching this will be nodding their heads at that. Football, after all, is just a sport. But are you missing it? Are you missing the day-to-day interaction with your players?
Definitely. I think when you think of how well we've done as a team and how well we've done as a squad, I think when you're quite successful anyway, I think you're sort of on that pitch and you're loving every day. You're loving being part of that football club environment. And look, it certainly helps when you get results. So look, who knows what it could be like if results were a little bit adverse. But look, you know, for me, it's all been about football. Always been about football. And you know, whenever I can sort of put on a pair of football boots, a pair of shorts, and start running around a football pitch. Admittedly, Chris, not as quick and as quick and fleetful as I used to be, but I think for me it was just it's just a real buzz getting on that football pitch and you know, sort of directing traffic, if you like.
We've spoken at length, Rob. I've been very fortunate to have numerous conversations with you, and your passion for football remains undimmed. You've said in the past you just wanted that opportunity. Brisbane have given you that opportunity. Let's talk about Robbie Fowler, the manager. Your philosophy, your style. Give us a semblance of what that's like.
Look, my philosophy is, of course, you know, I think you know, I played in very, very good teams and played the right way, where we like to keep the ball on the floor and move it around. You know, get the passer moving quick and getting teams ready to chase us as as an opposition. You know, I played under great managers, as I've said, and obviously me with the Liverpool links. And I'm not saying we play exactly, or I want to play exactly the way Liverpool want to play, but I think that's a good fit. You know, and I think if you go down the Liverpool way, which is what we are trying to do, in terms of the speed of the ball movement, the speed of getting into certain areas of the pitch, getting overloads on one side, and getting players who are certainly into areas where we can hit the opposition. That's what we're trying to do. I think this year, we have been successful. I think generally been successful as a team. A little bit of a tough start, but I think since the turn of the year, we've probably been one of the best teams, or one of the form teams. We've accumulated more points than anyone, and that's just by playing the right way. Being competitive. Being hard to beat. I think obviously I went to Brisbane last year. And I went to Brisbane this year, and last year they were a team who'd struggled, conceded over 70 odd goals in 27 games. So straight away I come in with a new mentality, to try and change the players' mentality, to try and get the players believing in what I'm saying to them. Certainly me and my coaching staff are doing everything that we can to change everything about the club. So this year, when I just mentioned that we've gone from 70 odd goals, I think we're certainly up there with. I think we're joint first with clean sheets at the minute. I think that we've got 4 games to go. We've conceded, I think 24 goals or 24 goals. So that even in itself is an incredible stat. I think when you sort of sit and analyse where we are now to where we were last year, I mean, it's just an incredibly different team, and the team have got so much more belief in than what they had.
What are you like on the touchline, Rob? Are you a calming influence? Do the teacups go flying? What are you like as a man manager in that regard?
Well, I'd like to think man management's my forte. But when I think of the best managers I've played under, I think man managers are the ones that got more out of me. Look, I think what I'm very honest. I'm on the sidelines. I'm obviously kicking every ball, and I am passionate, and I want to be out on the football pitch. But look, our coaching, and our main asset is we do everything during the week. So we've got the players believing in themselves where they get onto that, the grass pitch, and give them a little bit of accountability, letting them believe and let them express themselves. Obviously, with the tutorage of obviously myself and the staff, I think that's probably what I like and what I want. So my management style is for me is my forte. But look, I'd like to think, I'm not a manager, certainly not a manager who wants to go out there and think I know everything. I'm learning all the time, and I want to learn all the time, and that's the big thing. I'm not suddenly on the touchline thinking I know everything, because I don't. I didn't want to surround myself with yes men. So obviously my office is always open. That's for the players, that's for the staff to so bounce ideas off me. And look, it's not it's not my way or the highway. We'll get everyone together, and we'll have a real big conflab, and we'll decide what's best for the team. Because obviously I think that's the best way. I think if you're a manager and you surround yourself by yes men, I think that you're on island to fail. You're on a road to failure. So I think the way I'm going so far, and getting everyone to believe in my method and my philosophy and my ideas is good. But I'm also open to listen to all ideas from all of the staff and even the players. I think we give them that little bit of accountability as well.
What about your appreciation for the game, Rob? You obviously played it at such a high level. I mean, that goes without saying. I'm stating the bleeding obvious there. But over the last year, what have you kind of perhaps taken away that maybe when you're caught with the blinkers on as a player, you maybe don't pay enough attention to, maybe you don't pay enough respect to certain elements of the game? Is there anything there that you've learned? Yeah,
look, I mean, that's a great question, to be honest, because I think certainly when you're a player, you're pretty selfish in sort of like the one-dimensional. It's all about you and your position, and you've got to do your job basically. Now, obviously, when you're on this side of the fence where I am now, it becomes everything. Now, it doesn't just become what happens on the pitch, in one position. It becomes on the pitch, every position. You've got to be that father figure for all the players, and you've even got to be a father figure for everyone in around the club. So yeah, I think so. My admiration and appreciation of football since I've been going down the coaching route has extended somewhat, just because there's more than one position. You've got to learn every attribute of every area of that pitch, and you know what, it's brilliant. I want to do it. I'm really passionate about football. I think I've spoke to you many times. I think you sort of get how passionate I am. But when you're this side of the fence, and you can obviously change things a little bit more in terms of how your team plays, how you want to play, who you're up against, and if you can have that effect on a football team, then it's certainly rewarding.
You've got Tony Grant, former Everton midfielder. He's down in Brisbane with you, Robbie. Do you pick up the phone to anyone? I know we've spoken at length. Roy Evans was a huge influence on your career. You've played with some of the very best managers of their generation. Do you find yourself picking up the phone?
No, I have done. When I obviously went into Brisbane, I think a few of the people I reached out to was obviously Sir Alex Ferguson and obviously soon to be Sir Jurgen Klopp. For what he's achieved at Liverpool. So obviously they were I mean, so helpful in terms of helping me get a video out and getting a video to the players and giving them that little bit more of a buzz, if you like. And so look, I'm not saying I phone them all the time, or certainly not phone Jürgen all the time. But if I ever need conversation, then I wouldn't hesitate to pick up the phone to Jürgen. I think he's been fantastic to me whenever I've seen him, whenever I've been in around a football club. And I love that. The fact is that he's so open and so forthcoming in terms of having conversations, not just about football, but in everything. But I know if I can, pick up that phone, and call Jürgen, then I know for a fact he would answer, and we would have, a real good chat on football. Hence the the Liverpool way I said at the start.
Did Fergie pick up the phone to you?
He has done, yes. And you know what? And this is what, look, put rivalries aside, and you go on about that Liverpool-Manchester United thing. I mean, he's someone who I have so much respect for. I think he's been a fantastic manager certainly for British football, for what he's achieved. But you know what? He's an absolute fantastic man. Obviously he wasn't too good. I think it was just over a year ago we had was obviously his brain injury, wasn't it? And I wasn't sure how he'd be, in all fairness, because you're not really sure how serious or how really will affect him. Obviously, I'd got in touch with him straight away, make sure he was okay. And look, he came back more or less straight away and told me he was fine. And he's obviously a fighter, which he's not need to tell anyone, because I think he's proven that to lots of people over the years. And look, again, once I reached out for a video for Brisbane Roar, he couldn't be more helpful. So so much respect, and he's certainly someone who I admire loads.
It's incredible, and it's a story that you actually told me over in these parts, Rob. A lot of people might not be aware of this, but Fergie was in for you. He wanted to make you a striker at Manchester United, didn't he?
Yeah, I think there's lots of clubs in the Premier League who was after me, in all fairness.
Touche.
I think, look, I mean, it just shows you I wasn't a bad player. I think when you've got someone of the ilk of Sir Alex, and when they're trying to put teams together, then I think it's obviously refreshing. Would I have left Liverpool to join Manchester United? It would have been incredibly tough. But when you've got, in fact, it wouldn't have been incredibly tough. It would have been a no-go straight away. But when you've got someone like that, and that's very admirable, and it just shows that I wasn't a bad player.
No, you definitely were not a bad player, Robbie. And you did say, and it's a wonderful little part of that story, that Fergie was trying to make you hand in a transfer request. He knew what he was doing, right? He just tried to upset the apple cart a little bit.
Well, look, I don't know how serious he was, but look, I think certainly at the time, Manchester United were a top team with some top players. And look, just to echo what I just said, when you've got a top team, look, there's a little bit of really, he wants me, and then you think, well, yeah, you can see it because you've done well, and you've obviously got. But look, I'm a Liverpool lad. I'm literally brought up 2 miles from the city centre. There's not a chance I would have left Liverpool to join Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a good answer, that, Rob. Interestingly enough, you are a Liverpool legend, a Premier League legend. I think you sit 7th on the all-time scoring charts. When you're working with the players that you are in Brisbane, are they aware? I mean, obviously, gaining their respect, that wasn't difficult to do, given what you were as a player. Have you felt it kind of imperative to win their respect as you, a football manager, putting your career as a player to one side?
Oh, without a shadow. I think when you have a career as probably good as mine and as successful as mine in terms of games and goals and certainly what the honours that I've won, I think, look, it's great, and it gives you maybe a little bit of an advantage to go in there and be and say all the right things in front of the players. That's what I'm talking about in terms of the advantage. You can go in there because you've been at the top level, because you know the game, because you've played with good players, because you've played under great managers. I think you have that little bit of respect. But look, that respect also is earned by what you do. So I think the fact is that you're in a dressing room, and that can be quickly forgotten about what you've achieved in the past, because quite frankly, you're here to do a job for the team. You're here to do a job for the players. And look, I think players are clever, a lot cleverer than what people give them credit at times. And they can see through anything. They can see if you're a blagger per se. They can see if you're a bit of a false entity. And I think you've got to earn that right on the on the training pitch. You've got to earn that right in the dressing room by saying and doing all the right things. And I'd like to think I've done all that. So yeah, you will get that little bit of respect for what you've achieved, but you'll get far more respect for what you're doing at that particular time in sort of helping and trying to better the team, the squad, and certainly the old place. And look, I go back to what I was saying before in terms of Brisbane. The difference now between what we are as a club to last year, I mean, I think it's frightening, and it's something that I'm really, really proud of. Brisbane last year, I think they won 4 games, conceded 70 odd goals, as I've said. Now we're fourth, going into the last couple of games, favourites one of the favourites to get into the playoffs, and obviously we're one of the best defensive records in the team. Look, it's been really, really rewarding, and it's been class. I've loved it.
You're being a bit modest there as well, Rob. Manager of the month in January, Manager of the month in February as well. Back-to-back Manager of the Month award. So a bit of frustration, I guess.
As well, and I probably got it in March as well. You probably got it in March as well. That was
It's incredible. So to think, you must be raging then, obviously making sure the family and being back in Merseyside and all the rest of it, but upsetting that rhythm and that little bit of momentum that you had built up. Frustration, I guess, with that as well.
Oh, hugely. I think, I've said since the turn of the year, we're the form team. And look, you just said yourself, I think in football, momentum plays a major, major part. You go into games, you have that belief, you have that confidence, and you go out there thinking that you can beat everyone. And sadly, this horrible virus that's going around the world at the minute, is taking control and stopped football. So look, it is what it is. It's the same for every team. But look, we've got to try and adapt, and even when, or I should say when and if the football does get started again, because I don't really see a little bit of a light at the end of this tunnel at the minute. I think we've just got to go out there and look. My philosophy is, look, we'll try and get the players to carry out that momentum. We've given them programs to look after themselves. They actually can't get on the training pitches, as a club, because they've all been stood down. But what I will say about the team that I've created, I think the attitude and the desire from every single player has been absolutely spot on. And for me to go into that role and create that has been brilliant. And I think when you are sort of adapting to football clubs and you're bringing in all the players, I think that is paramount that you need to do. You need to get the right attitude. You need to get the right desire, into them players. And thankfully I've got the very best. The attitude has been absolutely I think it's been unnerving. I think they have been absolute quality. I've no doubt, should it start again, we'll do everything in our power and to try and finish where we left off. One
thing, Rob, all elite sportsmen and women have in common, they often talk about sacrifice. You've got to sacrifice in order to get to the very top. You're doing just that as well down in Brisbane. I know the family are still based in Merseyside. How have you found that? And in a lot of ways, obviously, I'm sure, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you're missing the family. That goes without saying. But in a lot of ways, has that put the blinkers on? Has that allowed you to focus solely on ensuring success on the football pitch with Brisbane Roar?
Yeah, look, I think you're granted it's a good question, but I think when my family obviously envisaged coming over, but obviously I've got a few kids who are sitting in university. I've got one, a young daughter who's now got a boyfriend, and obviously I've got a little lad who's obviously in school. So I think when you look at the uncertainty of obviously football, forget about this pandemic or this epidemic. I think you're never really sure how it can be. So if I'm sort of upgrading my family from here to where we are, then look, I could last 2 months, and for your family to do that and then all of a sudden get sacked if things go really bad, then you've got to sort of uproot everything and come home. So I think from a family point of view, I think it's obviously best that they stay here and I go and do what I do. And look, I take that on board. And the fact is that I live and breathe football anyway. I wake up, watch football, and I go to bed and I watch football. All throughout that day, we've obviously got the training. We've got various aspects of club duties that you'll do. So you can focus a little bit more. But obviously, the family life is hugely important, and you want that to be as close to perfect as you can. And look, being so far away from them is not perfect. We all know that. But look, my aim is obviously to be the best I can for my family. It really is. So if that means me being successful, in one place, and then eventually the family join me, then I'm happy with that.
You've played, I keep going back to it, Rob, under so many fine managers. Give me a couple of kind of sound bites, if you can, about the best ones, the ones that you'll sometimes catch yourself and think, what, he would have said that. He would have said that. You've played Venables, Evans, Benitez, Houllier. Who's the ones that stand out for you?
Well, look, I think certainly from a club side, Venables for an England team was very, very good. He was, tactically very, very good, and I like that. But look, I'm going to obviously base myself here on club managers. Now, I've been lucky enough to play under some excellent managers. I had my start under Graham Souness, but I loved Roy Evans. Roy Evans was different class because I think he ticked a lot of the boxes I wanted to see in a manager. With the arm around the shoulder, and the man management was good, and getting out the best out of the players that way. I think when you think of tactical and technical, you've got the likes of Rafa Benitez, who I would put up there up against anyone. I think his knowledge of the game was, I think, second to none. I think Gerard Houllier was almost as good. He was very close. He came to Liverpool when, people might say they were having a little bit of a tough time. In terms of having won X amount of trophies, and he sort of maybe changed the attitude of players again, if you like. So his technical and tactical ability was brilliant as well. But for me, it was all about Roy Evans. Now, Roy Evans wasn't technically or tactically as good as like a Gerard or a Rafa, but I loved playing under him because of that management style. That manager who gives you that belief to go out there and knowing that you can have the goal to compete with anyone. And I love that. And this is why I love Jurgen Klopp, and this is why I would love to model myself on him, because I think he fits the bill for the perfect manager. And I think when I say the perfect manager, I'm talking about, technically he's good, tactically he's very good. And his managerial skills is unbelievable as well. So for me, he's as close to the perfect manager as you can find. And he knows how to handle players, and that is the route I'm leading towards, and the route I want to go down. So again, you can imagine, Chris, everything sort of also equates to a Liverpool with me. I want to play the Liverpool way. We have done that. I know that the best manager I've played under. I played under obviously good England managers as well, but I always revert back to Liverpool and the style of playing, the style of managers that I had there, and and I want to be part of of what I know in terms of club football.
Yeah, absolutely respect that, Rob. It was interesting you've mentioned Terry Venables. Teddy Sheringham, different approach. His manager, and he said it to us, and he said it to numerous other outlets. The best manager he played under was Terry Venables. He loved that, and that's a man who's played under Sir Alex Ferguson. Just touching on Terry, if we can, Rob, I'm conscious that it's almost 24 years to the very day since Euro 96, since football came home. Again, a lot of people might forget, you were part of that 22-man squad. You, Les Ferdinand, Alan Shearer, Teddy Sheringham. That was Terry's 4 strikers. 24 years, can you remember much of it?
Yeah, I can actually. I remember the tournament as though it was yesterday. I really can. I think when you sort of sit and analyse, and you just mentioned yourself, Chris, football did come home, but I think that was the general gist of people's love and people's appreciating football a little bit more. Obviously, we were close to being really, really successful. I think we were probably an inch away from Gaza getting his left boot onto a winning goal in the semi-final. Who knows what would have happened in the final? But look, I'm going to be a little bit pessimistic here and think, when you sort of sit and analyse the tournament, we actually only won 2 games. We won against against Holland and Scotland. We drew against Switzerland. We drew against Spain. And obviously we drew against Germany, but lose on penalties. We won on penalties in the Spain game. But yeah, for all the admiration of obviously the way we played and the way football was, I think when football came home, I think it was just a simple fact is that football was more appreciated by the supporters who started loving the game. Obviously, and we were close to being a real successful England squad.
21 years of age you were back then, Rob. Do you remember it? You've said that you remember it like yesterday. Do you remember the fanfare, the build-up, that Dutch game as well? It's gone down in history as one of England's real good performances at a major tournament. What's your kind of memories? What does stand out to you from those times?
Well, I remember the first game against Switzerland. It was obviously, it was a real close game, a real tight game. From what I remember, probably could have went either way. Certainly in the second half, England wasn't great. But then you sort of look at the games against Scotland, against Holland. We probably missed the fanfare as much as what the public were getting because we were sort of isolated. Excuse me. We were isolated in the hotel, so we probably missed all that. But the only time we really sort of got out was on the way to games. We'd go out to train, and training was really behind closed doors. There was obviously a few press there. So from the first game to the last game, all of a sudden you've gone from maybe 100 press to 300 or 400 press. So you could see that the love and the feel of everyone. You could feel that through the press. Going to the games where the minute we left the hotel to the minute we got to Wembley, there was people lining the streets, with the flags and the scarves and the banners. So you sort of felt that certainly the later the tournament went on. And it was just an incredible tournament for certainly for what the fans made it. Now, obviously, the results in terms of getting to where we were good because obviously that's where we got to. But the probably Holland game. I mean, forget the Scotland game because that was obviously it was a 2-0 win, obviously. But and yourself are probably not too happy with this, Chris. But Gary McAllister penalty that goes in. I mean, that could have changed the entire tournament. Thankfully for us, it missed. And
Uri Geller had his say.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I'm not sure everyone would have remembered him, to be honest. But and then up to go to the Holland team. So when I say in terms of the tournament being what it was, and you're getting 2 wins, that was as good as England performance that we've seen for a long time, and even from then to now. That performance against a very, very good and a very strong Holland team was quite frankly incredible.
Management has been a theme of our conversation, Rob. Do you remember at all what Terry did to alleviate the pressure? Did he do anything special? Did you confront it? Did you talk about it as a group? Say, hey, listen, we know the country expects here, and this is the way we're going to deal with it.
Yeah, look, I think that's the case. That would always be mentioned from a manager point of view. But I think what I always remember about Terry Venables was, I think he treated you like an adult. He treated you with the respect that you go out there and knew that you were playing for your country. He knew that you probably have to do everything that you sort of could in your own self to sort of get out there and perform, not only in games but in training pitches as well. And look, this is what I love about managers, about man management again. You go out there and if you sort of like keep the players sort of, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, then players will rebel. So Terry Venables was a manager who went, look, I'll give you a little bit of leeway, but obviously remember where you are, remember what you've got to do, remember where you're going, and you respect that. When someone gives that sort of accountability, which again is what I'm doing with my players now. I think players appreciate appreciate that a little bit more, and you're not treating them like kids. And I always remember that with Terry, certainly with England. It was just a case of, look, remember where you are, remember where you're going. And that's brilliant.
Now that summer, and there is a link here, Rob, that summer, I was talking a few days back with Paul Lambert. His story is a remarkable one, from Motherwell to Borussia Dortmund that summer. And then, of course, winning the European Cup in 1997. He said, hands down, winning the European Cup, his greatest moment of his footballing career. What about yours, Rob? I probably looked to 2001 and Liverpool Football Club, the treble that you completed that year, FA Cup, League Cup and UEFA Cup. You scored in that UEFA Cup final. Is that the season that you would always go back to?
Again, yeah, I think it's an obvious answer. I mean, I love playing in the mid-90s teams with the likes of Steve McManaman, Jamie Redknapp, Jason McAteer. I know he doesn't get mentioned much, for Steve Harkness, a good friend of mine. I love that era, but in terms of what you've achieved and what you've won, 2001 was absolutely different class. I think for a team to do what we did that year, go unbeaten in every cup competition, that's the League Cup, the FA Cup and the UEFA Cup. To do that was special. A real special bunch of lads, a real special squad. But you know what I love about it, and this is obviously it's a little bit quite surreal actually. It was a quite. I love more about it. The fact is that we finished in the Champions League places as well. Now, look, I'm the old adage where, look, just because you finish in the Champions League places doesn't mean that you've been successful. And look, my ambition was always to win the Premier League, and it sort of always irks me a little bit, when you see players and they're celebrating because they've got into the Champions League. It shouldn't really be you doing the celebrating. It should be the club chairman or the club owners coming on the pitch doing all the dancing for what it's worth, for what it's worth for the club. But I think for us to do that in 2001, win all those trophies, but capping it off by getting into the Champions League was special. So I think we won the FA Cup on Saturday. We won the UEFA Cup on the Wednesday. But we couldn't really celebrate it because we had a massive game against Charlton on the following Sunday, and we needed to win that to qualify for the Champions League too. And that would have made the season just unreal. Other than winning the Premier League, I think it was almost a perfect year. It really was, and we ended up winning the game 4-0. So when I think of Liverpool and the games and the trophies that I've won and that we've won as a club, I always think back to that Charlton game because that just capped off what a tremendous and unbelievable season that we had that year. But just by getting into the Champions League on top of winning all those cups was special.
You've name-checked Steve McManaman there, a man who took a bit of a risk. He moved to, I say a risk, it was Real Madrid, for goodness sake, that was coming in from. Paul Lambert as well, at a time where British players, not too many were going abroad. Did an opportunity ever arise for you, Rob, to maybe take your talents abroad? And looking back on it now, does part of you think, you know what, I'd have loved to have gone and sampled a different footballing culture?
Yeah, look, I think hindsight is obviously a brilliant thing, isn't it? I think we can all say, if only you'd done this or only done that. I think a few clubs were interested in me. I think Madrid were, certainly when I was younger. And I know the club obviously just didn't want to get rid of me, certainly early doors. They did later on. Yeah, look, for me, I was playing football and, in a great club, place where I loved, place where I grew up. So I didn't feel as though I needed to go anywhere else. I was more than happy. You just mentioned, obviously, Maka. And I love Maka. He's, a real good mate of mine. But a real class player. One of the best players I've ever played with. When you think of obviously the greatest ever Liverpool players, I think you put the likes of Kenny and Stephen, who are probably up there with, and it's probably arguably who is the best Liverpool player ever. But certainly the best player I think I played under. I think Stephen, of course, would get a mention, but Maka was just superb, and I love playing with him. We had this great understanding. We had this great camaraderie and friendship on the pitch, as well as off it. And when you've got like a relationship like that, then you can see what it means. So obviously, him leaving Liverpool, it was obviously a sad time for me, but I was also delighted for him because obviously, for what he achieved and where he went, taking that massive risk, Chris, going to Madrid. And he probably doesn't get the accolades he deserves. He really was an incredible player. He really was. I mean, it might have changed now with obviously Gareth Bale and what he's achieved, but for a long time, Steve McManaman was the most successful British player or English player to have played abroad.
To think, had you gone to Madrid, Rob, it would have been you and Raul. It would have been two left-footed little poachers, foxes in the box. You would have won that all day long.
Not even a debate, Chris. Not even a...
Oh, brilliant. Steve Maka, you've mentioned him there, the best player that you've played with. He left, he took that chance. It didn't work out for all that left Liverpool. I think Michael Owen's been pretty candid with what he said to say, you know what, looking back, I might have made, again, hindsight, a wonderful thing. The day that you walked out of the football club, Rob, don't want to get all misty-eyed with you, but did you shed a tear? Was it an emotional time when you kind of closed the door on Melwood for the final time, that first stint around?
Really, to say what you want to say to all the staff, because all of a sudden you're playing and then all of a sudden the phone call, listen, you need to go and sign for this club. So you sort of missed that element. So did I shed a tear? No, not really, because it happened so quick. Obviously, when you sort of sit down and you are where you're at, and really, this has happened, and it sort of hits home a little bit. But in a way though, Chris, as much as it was my decision, I felt as though I needed to leave because obviously I wasn't playing, and I felt as though the club were trying to get rid of me. They tried a few times. A few clubs had come in. I didn't really want to, but it became more evident then that the club were, didn't really see me in a plan. So I knew I needed to go. Obviously going to Leeds. Leeds was a brilliant club, really was. Great supporters, a great time on the pitch as well. And obviously with what happened to the club was an incredible shame. Then going to Man City. Man City was not the Man City we see today. Didn't really enjoy it at first, but got to really enjoy it. The longer I was there. Didn't play well at the start, but one of my proudest moments was, I think, finishing second or third in the Player of the Year 1 year just before I left. But this goes back to what I'm saying with Liverpool. With leaving, in a way, I probably look back now and think, it was probably a good idea, because I got to go back and I appreciated Liverpool a little bit more. Now, that's not to say I didn't appreciate my time at Leeds or at Man City. Both good clubs, both real good sets of supporters who I got on very, very well with. But look, Liverpool is a place where Liverpool's a place where I love. Again, we're back to that Liverpool way, Chris, again. But I just love being part of Liverpool. But when you think of my career and where I was, and coming from schoolboy, going through the youth teams, the reserve teams, first teams, I never knew anywhere else. So when you go to somewhere else, eventually you realise how special Liverpool is. So in a way, I'm glad I left, because I got to appreciate Liverpool that little bit more. I got to appreciate the old place that little bit more. And look, I will reiterate, nothing against Leeds, nothing against Man City, because I did like them. But as Dorothy once said, there's no place like home.
Oh, I love it, Rob. That Leeds team didn't win much, but my goodness, talk to him about how good a team that was in a lot of ways. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to what you achieved at Liverpool, but man versus man, that Leeds squad was a heck of a squad.
Yeah. I think when you sort of sit and look at, I think when Liverpool were trying to get rid of me, and clubs were coming in, and then Leeds came in, and all of a sudden I went, oh, this could be interesting, and then you look at the squad, you look at the players you're going to be playing with, the players you're going to be training with, and that has a big say for me anyway. It was not all about, you're going to get X amount of money. That was never the case. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to go and play for a team who had good players. That's not saying the other teams never, but I just felt Leeds were a little bit of a pick above. So getting to play with the likes of Viduka, Harry Kuehl, David Batty, Rio Ferdinand, Jonathan Woodgate. Look, and there's going to be lots of lads who are upset I haven't mentioned there, but you can probably sit all day and talk about what a wonderful side that we had. A wonderful squad of players that we had. And we were all close. We were all really, really was close on that, in around that football environment.
I'm glad to say, Rob, that you've got a good memory. You remember Euro 96 as if it was yesterday. I was just trawling through some of your finest goals this morning. My goodness, Rob, you have scored some absolute beauties. I've got my own personal favourite. For you, is there one that stands out?
I mean, I go back to that Charlton game again. The last game, the 2001 season. And look, I was lucky enough to score some great goals, goals outside the area where when you epitomise good goals, you think of volleys or you think of stanchions from at the edge of the box or outside the area. I love tap-ins more than anything because that meant I was doing the job that I was needed to do and the job that I was there to do. But I always think back to when people ask me about my favourite goal. I think being a Liverpool player, I think any goal you score against Everton or any goal against Man United is always up there. It really is. But again, I go back to that 2001 season and the first goal against Charlton. We won all the cups. We needed to win this game, and we were 0-0 at half time, not playing great football. But then obviously I scored in the second half to get us 1-0 up, and it was I don't know. It was a little bit of a bad overhead kick, if you like. And it was the balls had come to me, and I just sort of scooped and put it back into the net in a crowded area. But I probably loved that goal more than anything. Not for the goal because it was brilliant goal. I mean, I think it was just an average goal, but I love that goal for what it meant for the team. Now, I think that tells you a little bit about me, Chris. As much as the accolades of scoring goals and winning trophies is brilliant. But when you score a goal and it means more to the team and it means more for the team in achieving what you set out to do, then I'm all over that. And for me, that's probably my favourite goal.
Yeah, I think it's number 2 on the list. For me, Rob, it's your Aston Villa goal. Your Cruyff turn, past Steve Staunton, left foot ping right in at the far corner. Do you know the goal I'm talking about?
I do, yes. Yeah.
Oh. I
do, yeah. I mean, obviously in the cop end. Yeah, I mean, again, it was a ball by Macca, and I just obviously put it through my legs. And I was quite blessed with having very little backlift in my shot. So, whenever I did shoot from outside the area, I don't think keepers were expecting it. And this is obviously advice that I could give to any forward playing in the game. If you take your shots quick and you take it when the keepers aren't expecting, you're probably going to score more goals. The keeper doesn't get time to get set up. You can't sort of gauge what you're going to do. And if you're taking your shots quick and you're certainly taking them like me with little backlift, then there's obviously more than half a chance that it's going to hit the back of the net. So, that's what I love about that goal, the fact that it was such a long way out. Doing that little bit of skill beforehand, against a good friend of mine, Steve Staunton. And then obviously putting the ball in the back of the net from 25 yards against an excellent keeper. Of course, it was a good goal, but not my favourite.
You're nothing but always honest with me, Rob, and I want an honest answer to this question. Sadio Mane beat your record. It was a proud record as well, the quickest hat-trick in Premier League history. I remember this game as if it was yesterday. It was at Anfield against Arsenal. When he did that, and I'm sure that the phone was going, a few of your mates on WhatsApp, are you like, that's a record I actually really enjoyed having?
Honestly, I was devastated when he beat it. It really was. I think when you go on about, you want records. You want that sort of that accolade, and I want to keep that. Obviously, proud of doing that. Proud of scoring 3 goals in 4.5 minutes. But the fact is that Sadio Mane now plays for Liverpool. I can let it slide a little bit. I think he's a tremendous player. In fact, he's probably my favourite player at the club at the minute. I love watching him. He's one of them players who gets you off the edge of your seat, and I do love watching him. Didn't really love him then, obviously, but what I will say, Chris, is mine was against a very, very good Arsenal team, very, very good defenders.
Yeah.
But Sadio was against a struggling Aston Villa team. So, as far as I'm concerned, mine's still better.
Yeah,
really
I'm not going to disagree with that, Rob. I'm not going to disagree at all. Last few from me. I know you're a busy boy. You've got better things to be doing than chatting to me. In terms of when you look back, Rob, I often ask, do people miss it? Do people have regrets? I'll put the same question to you. Do you miss the game? Do you miss putting the boots on and trotting out and scoring goals? And are there regrets? I know you've spoken again hugely candidly to me in the past about that infamous goal celebration with Everton, and that if again you could go back and do that, you would maybe think differently.
Yeah, I think with football, look, I think certain things happen, and look, you know, as long as you sort of learn from them, yeah, I think I'm more than happy. So everything that has happened has made me better for it. It really has. You know, it's got me understanding. You know, not everything is just about the football pitch. Look, you are a role model as a footballer, whether you like it or not. And for years and years, I struggled with that because, you know, I didn't see that. You know, for me, I was a young lad playing football, and you know, I just wanted to be the same as everyone else. Again, you go on about that hindsight thing, and you think, "Oh, I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that." And look, there's probably a little bit of regret there in terms of doing it, but the fact is that it happened, and it makes you a better person, and you know, you're doing it for one reason, which is to try and answer people. Then yeah, I think, you know, in a way, it's sort of happened, and just you can sort of sit and analyse. You can try and, you know, admit you were wrong or as much as you want. The fact of the matter is, you know, I did it, but you know what? I'm a better person because of it. You know, I've learned from it. You know, and whenever you do mistakes, you know, and as long as you're learning from them, I think that's, you know, that's all that matters. So yeah, you can dwell on whatever anything throws at you, but as long as you're going forward and you take what you've done in the past and you can try and be better because of it, then you know, I think anyone will accept that and adapt to that.
Do you still get the odd Everton fan that teases you over that one? Because I always think the city of Liverpool, it lives and breathes football. We know great tragedy as well with that city. It's a rivalry, but it's a rivalry very much built on respect. You know, you've said to me in the past, your mum could be an Evertonian and your dad could be a Red. It's that kind of city. But do you get the old little banter now and again?
Now and again, all the time, Crystal, all the time. I think that's just football for you. I think it really is. I think we as football fans can be quite tribal. So when you're against one as opposed to the other, then yeah, it's going to happen. Look, there's obviously a fine line between, you know, how far you take that tribalism and, you know, and how far you want to go with it. Generally, sometimes it's not too bad and you can accept it. But once people start getting carried away and becoming a little bit aggressive with it, it's hard to take. Hence, this is why you do the celebrations, because obviously, you know, people are aggressive with it. But look, yeah, it's something that you learn to live with, something that you have to adapt with. And look, I'll probably get stick for the rest of my life. But you know what? There's not a lot I can do about that.
No, not at all. You got to live by your convictions in life. Rob, you mentioned tribalism there. Celtic and Rangers up my neck of the woods. When it comes to tribalism, there are no clubs that I guess are poster teams for that than Celtic and Rangers. Did a move to either of those, was that ever mooted? Did you ever come close? It was a question that someone messaged in on my Twitter earlier this morning. Celtic or Rangers in your career?
No. No. I mean, I don't really know what to say other than, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, I played in a testimonial for Rangers against Middlesbrough. I played against John Barnes and Paul Gascoigne actually. And actually scored for Rangers as well, but that was as far as it went. No one ever contacted me for either club. No one, yeah. So I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. I really don't.
Fine. A move.
There wasn't any conversations whatsoever.
Okay, it's good that we've put that one to bed. A lot of hipsters getting on my Twitter today as well. Bit of a niche question, this one. Your favourite football strip? What strip did you love just putting on? Obviously the Liverpool one, Rob, but was there a particular season that you thought, this is a bloody good kit?
Yeah, I love like lots of kits enough. And in fact, that was when you're a player, you couldn't wait for the kit to come out so you could see what you look like in it. I loved the kit when I resigned to Liverpool. It had like a little bit of a collar, I'm not really sure it was a collar. It was just like a little bit of a tear here. So when I returned to Liverpool in 2006, you know, I've got a lot of fond memories with that kit. But any goal scorer or any player who scored goals will tell you their favourite kit is probably the one they scored the most goals in. Now my favourite kit was probably the one in '96. It was obviously a deep red. It had like a little bit of a stripe.
Yeah.
And it was all red, but it was like a little bit of a different colour red. You know what I mean? And it had the big cricket style collar.
I know the one. Yeah, I know
I did. Yeah, you probably remember it. If you just go onto any social media and put in my goal, and it probably just any of them kits will be any of them are my favourite. But certainly the '96 kit was probably my favourite.
We talk as well, Rob, about modern day footballers, the advent of social media. Of course, social media not around in your day. I mean, how has that changed? And I guess it comes back and we come full circle to you being a manager. Are the conversations and blokes in the dressing room, is it the same kind of chat and the same kind of banter that it was, or have you seen change in today's young footballers compared to your day?
Yeah, there is definitely a change. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a major change in terms of you've done this and you've done that. I think players are. I mean, everything you see now is phones in their hand and the pictures and they're putting it out and they're documenting the life stories. You know, we never really done that. I think obviously social media can play a good part in certainly helping you in the public eye. It could also be dangerous. I think you've got to be very careful with it. So certainly from my point of view, again, you go back to the good manager you played under. You've got to give the players that little bit of ownership and treat them like an adult, and you can't really take them away from. But if you start being silly and being stupid on these social media platforms, then I think you've got to be careful how you sort of gauge that with them. It can be a good thing. It can right lots of wrongs. But when if something adverse happens and you look at social media, then I mean it could ruin you as a player. It really can. Now, obviously, in this day and age, we look into the mental capacity and the mental health of lots of players. And if you're struggling mentally, I don't think social media is for you. Mental health wise, I think there's lots and lots of naughty people out there who are not afraid to get on your Twitter, Instagram channels and give you absolute untold stick. And it's wrong. I think this is where we probably, maybe as footballers or maybe as as people in general, every nice person out there, there's more horrible people. And I think for us to combat that, I think the ways you get onto these platforms, I don't know, use passports, use home addresses, and you can't really log onto them unless you actually say who you are, and then we can start weeding out the bad people, because the bad people on these social media channels can ruin lives. They really can, and we don't want to see players where they look into to what's written about them or what's said about them, and it's not a good thing. It really isn't. So if you've had a bad game, stay clear of social media because you'll get absolutely roasted on it.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, Rob. Some advice as well for some of the young Liverpool players that are coming through. I look at someone like a Curtis Jones, a Harvey Elliott as well. Two young boys, bright futures. Are you enthused as a Liverpool fan now, looking from afar? You think they've got bright futures in the game and at that football club?
Yeah, of course. But look, I think it's easy to say. I think whenever any young players are coming through, he's got plenty of potential. And the potential is obvious. It really is. But as long as they can keep their feet on the ground and certainly under the tutorage of obviously Jürgen and his staff, I think they can go a long way. What level? We don't know. It's just hypothetical. It really is. But look, they're on a good path at the minute. They're playing good football at a good team, good squad of players under a great manager. And can he make them better? Of course he can. But it's got to be them as well. It's got to be how much they want to, how much they're willing to put into it, whether they've got the right attitude. No doubt they have. And I've met them a few times, and obviously both level-headed kids. But look, we've got to remember, you just said that they are kids, so we have got to let them play football. We've got to get them enjoying it, and it becomes a time when young kids coming into the game, and if you stop enjoying it, then I don't think football's for you. So if you keep progressing the way they're going, that potential can get even better. It really can. But look, do I want to see him play for Liverpool? I want to see him play for Liverpool if they're good enough. I really do. But from my point of view to them is, look, you're out there and be the very best you can. You have the correct attitude, do everything right. You look at the likes of Messi and you look at the likes of Ronaldo, both top players who do everything needed to stay at the top level, for as long as they have is quite incredible. Playing for for top clubs. Now that doesn't happen by accident. That happens because the attitude is absolutely spot on. You do everything right, and not everyone can be like that. Don't get me wrong, not everyone can be like that or as good as them. But I think if you've got an attitude like them, then I think you can go a long way in the game. So obviously with the likes of Curtis and young Harvey, obviously the potential is huge. But they've got to keep progressing. They've got to keep wanting to better themselves. And look, me from a point of view as a Liverpool fan, still want them to do really well. I want them to play in the team if they're going to help the club to be successful. And look, that's down to them, and that's down to their attitude and their desire.
Think very carefully before you answer this one, Rob, because this is the most difficult question I'll ask you all day. Are Liverpool going to get the 5 points required to win this league title, or are they going to choke?
You should look. I know you're saying that with a smile on your face, and it's probably killing you, isn't it, being a Man U fan?
Oh, it is.
Liverpool have been magnificent this year. I think there was a lot of talk about null and void in the league and doing this and doing that.
Null and void, Rob. Null and void.
It's not. I don't think that was going to ever happen, but I think there was just too much at stake in terms of the game and the legalities of everything. So, I mean, I'm not sure whether they'll get it in the one game, obviously. But what they will get that Premier League, Chris. Don't you worry about that.
And are you booking the flights back to Brisbane for after the party?
You know what? I don't even know what's happening with Brisbane, to be honest. So I don't even know what's happening. There's obviously a little bit of talk about the league restarting, and obviously they've given us a few dates, but we're still waiting for the final answer because I think I'm not sure whether the communication has been perfect.
Yeah, well, I want to finish there, Rob, because I've kept you far longer than I promised I would. Just coming full circle, Brisbane's the here and now. Obviously, there's some uncertainty about the end of this season, which is a travesty given, as we've spoken about earlier, manager of the month, January, February. You may well have done that in March as well. The here and now is Brisbane, but you as a manager, Rob, and I want to come, as I say, full circle. You have ambitions to go and be a success in other parts of the world, and who knows, Rob, come back home to the UK and be a success?
Yeah, look, my ambition is exactly the same as I was as a player. I want to be the very best I can. If that takes me to places that I'd love to be, then of course. I think I say this to the players now. Have that ambition. Don't be happy playing, and it's not me being disrespectful of Brisbane. This is me being a realist and saying to the players, go out there and be the best you can. And who knows where you end up. Go and try and do things better for yourself. Again, no disrespect, but look, for me, it's a case of look. Of course, I'm a manager, loving it. You're massively appreciative of getting the opportunity at Brisbane. But for me, it's a case of look. I want to grow. And do I see myself at Brisbane all my life? No, I really don't. You look at any manager in the world. Any manager who's managing any club in the world. They don't really see themselves managing at a club. Until they pass. So I think it's important that you do have ambitions. You do have ambitions where you want to be as successful as you can and progress and propel to a level that you believe you can. And of course, yeah, I want to manage in the top leagues. I want to manage where I can sort of grow as well. I really can, and I see myself going on to lots and lots of good things.
Not afraid to step out your comfort zone, Rob. You've proven that by heading Australia. It's the other end of the world, for goodness sake. So in that regard, this part of the world as well, the Middle East, the UAE, I know the Arabian Gulf leagues.
Yeah, look, you can never say never. I think football is a path. Well, there's lots of pathways that you can lead down. Now, look, who knows what's happening? I don't even know what's happening with Brisbane next year. So, I mean, I've got to have conversations with the clubs about where the league's going, what's happening. So, yeah, of course, if there's opportunities for myself and for my staff, then I think I'd be foolish not to, because I don't really know, what's happening. I'm a little bit, in the dark about most things back in Australia. And until I find out a little bit more, then, I think the question will come up. And of course, yeah, if opportunities do arise somewhere else, and there's a league back in Australia that's not going to happen, then it's not really an hard question to answer. It really isn't. I've said before, I'm passionate about the game. I feel as though I've got a lot to give. You just mentioned yourself, Chris. Having the desire and the attitude to go over, to Australia and go out of my comfort zone, and that was for me to show everyone that this is what I'm prepared to do to get to be a top manager. Look, and if that takes me anywhere in the world, including the Middle East, then then we'll have those conversations when they arise. But for now, I think it's a case of, look, I think with Brisbane, I'm still Brisbane manager. Still plenty of conversations to be had about where the league's going, where the club's going. Until I have them, I can't really give you that definitive answer. But now where I'm sort of a little bit in the dark and a little bit lost in terms of what's happening, then if obviously future opportunities arise, then I think I'd be foolish not to have a chat.
Well, listen, Rob, it's always a pleasure whenever we get to catch up. You're doing sterling work down in the A-League down in Australia. I wish you all the very best in your managerial career. I'm going to stop short by saying I wish you all the very best for Liverpool Football Club in the next couple of weeks, because I'm dreading it, so I am.
Chris, look, I know you're a Man United fan, but look, you've got a lot of love for Liverpool. I know that. I can tell.
There's not much love here. And what I will say... I think that you're playing the second team. No chance. Come on now. What I will say, though, is, courtesy of you gave me a cracking day out at Anfield. The stadium, the curry and chips, top drawer. That's what I'll say about Liverpool.
I love that. I mean, they're unbelievable club. Champions of going to be champions of the Premier League. Going to be champions of Europe. They've just won 6 European Cups or 6 Champions Leagues. But you remember them for having good curry and chips. Curry sauce and chips, mate. I tell you, that's what John W. Henry has done. That's the best thing he's done at that football club. It was top drawer is what it was. But listen, in all seriousness, deserving champions. They will be champions, that football club. And just maybe finish on that. That football club, for you, Rob, you're someone who always strikes me. You never get carried away and ahead of yourself. But is a period of domination coming? Is Liverpool now here to stay for a good few years under Jurgen? I hope so. Look, I think what you've got to remember is there's probably teams slightly below Liverpool at the minute who are embarrassed is probably the wrong word, but they're probably upset with that, with what's happening. So you can guarantee that clubs will go out, and I'm not sure whether they'll spend the money because of obviously what's happened that they have done in the past. But look, I think clubs slightly below Liverpool will go out there and they'll bring in lots of players to try and compete against them. Man City are, look, let's be honest, wonderful club with wonderful players, and Liverpool to be so far ahead of them, I mean, that is just an extraordinary achievement, and you can't really stress how sort of good and how impressive that is. But you've got the likes of Chelsea, you've got the likes of City, you've got Arsenal, if you like, you've got Manchester United, even Tottenham to a degree, where they're probably not happy with the way things are in the Premier League. So they'll go out there and they'll want to compete. So how to compete? You go out there and you probably try and sign players who are going to try and give you that little bit of an edge. So this is where I think, in terms of, people are saying, there won't be that much money spent in the Premier League, but you can guarantee that these clubs will be spending a little bit, probably not as much, but they'll be spending money on players to try and get them to a level where they need to catch up to Liverpool. Yeah, absolutely. Spot on, Rob. Listen, 183 goals, 369 games for Liverpool Football Club, now manager of Brisbane Roar. Always a pleasure, Rob. I cannot thank you enough, because I should tell anyone watching this, I promise, Rob, it would not be more than half an hour. It's been over an hour. So I owe you on that front as well, Rob. Okay. Pleasure, mate. Listen, I enjoyed the chat anyway.